The next topic of discussion are the patterns of development and the organizational approach. And when I say patterns of development, it might be helpful to think of the type of essay or the kind of essay that you're being asked to write. And there are several that your book explains. We're not going to go over every one of these. Some of these are things that you might be familiar with, others maybe not so much. But the list includes description, which means giving sensory imagery, sights, smells, sounds, tastes, textures, giving those sensory details or sensory imagery. Narration has to do with telling what happened or giving the events of something that happened, or storytelling is another way of narration. And narration can be particularly useful because most people like to hear stories. The next type is exemplification, which exemplification is a long word for using examples. So an exemplification essay has lots and lots of examples. So we're not actually going to be doing a strictly exemplification essay for this semester, but your essays should include lots and lots of examples regardless. The next one is division classification, which has to do with breaking down things into parts, and it also has to do with grouping into categories. We also have the process analysis, which explains how something works or how to do something. Then we have comparison contrast, which is pointing out how things are alike, pointing out how things are different. Cause and effect is analyzing reasons as well as consequences. And then we have the definition essay, which is explaining the meaning of a term or concept. And then finally, argumentation persuasion, where you are trying to win people over to your side of a position or a topic. Next we have the organizational approach. And there are four different types that your book gives. The first one is chronological approach. And chronological just means how things happen in time. So there's a set beginning, and then how things move through time to an ending point. That's chronology. And narration and the process analysis work well with chronology, especially things that have a set beginning and a set ending in time. The next organizational approach is the spatial approach, and this is how things occur in space, or how things occur, their location or the relationship physically from one thing to another. So, for an example, if you were doing a descriptive essay and you were describing a particular room, you may start at a particular location, like the door, and then you may move from place to place to place within that particular room. That is an example of using the spatial approach. The next one is the emphatic approach. And emphatic just means saving the most compelling evidence for last, because typically readers remember most the things that they read last. They also remember things that they read first too, but the most important position is the last thing, because it's the last thing that people read, is the thing that's going to stick in their minds the most. So the emphatic approach has to do with saving the best for last. So you're going to put the things that you want to place the most emphasis on, you're going to put those last. So in other words, your strongest points, your most compelling evidence is going to go last. And then your next compelling or your next strongest point is going to go first. And you're going to kind of sandwich the lesser of your evidence or your support kind of in between these two positions. The fourth approach is called the simple to complex. So you start off with things that are relatively simple, or points that are relatively simple for people to understand. So the reasoning behind that is you're kind of wading them in. You're getting them started with something easy. and you're wading them into deeper waters. So you're wading them into things that are more complex. So you start out simple, and you gradually get to things that are more and more and more complex, ending with probably the most complex of your support. Kind of a variation on the simple to complex approach is the familiar to least familiar, and it kind of works in the same way. You start off with things that people are familiar with, or things that people are more likely to accept, and then you wade them into things that are less and less familiar to them. That's kind of just a variation of that simple to complex approach.